A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series, Natural Medicine. Great that you're watching on today, and today we have something very special, so please do stay tuned. I've invited two guests. First of all, Pierre Ziebergs, a warm welcome. You're from Mallorca, exactly, and you have a cell energy centre there, and you treat people there. Yeah. We'll get back to that. And secondly, an entrepreneur who's brought a well-known technology back into the market. Nothing more than a technology from Nikola Tesla that has benefited thousands of people. Welcome, dear Arthur Tränkle. Thank you for being here. Now, tell me, Arthur, how did you come up with the idea of rediscovering a technology from Nikola Tesla? That was a journey of discovery back in 2012. I was travelling in Russia looking at transformers, and a developer told me that there is a technology there with which you can help people suffering from liver cancer dissolve blockages. And at first it was a bit vague. Then I wanted to get to see and feel and see this device, and we reached an agreement with the people relatively quickly and said, okay, that would be something for European Western civilization. How can we get these devices over? And then almost every 3 or 4 months we filled up suitcases and brought the equipment over. Until sometime in 2015 or 16, the developer said he was already too old, that he could no longer do it. We should build the devices in Europe. There are even much better electronics and microelectronic engineers to do it there. And then we trained the people, and it started that I then realized that this technology is actually 120 years old. Whether it was Ewald Paul or Nikola Tesla, who was the first one who worked with these technologies and started healing himself whenever he had a problem. He brought himself back to health with this Tesla oscillator. And now let's talk about it, dear Pierre. May I ask you, because we have cell electrics, and we know from medicine that every disease, every inflammation and every pain arises when the cell electrics slowly have too little energy. So instead of minus 80 millivolts, this energy drops to 1 point. And that's exactly where this Tesla oscillation comes in, yeah? Yes, exactly. So the best range is minus 70 millivolts to minus 90, and then the cell's young and can work optimally. Can we put it that way? 80 millivolts shows us that the cell is full of electricity. On the one hand, it's full of electricity, and it also has enough energy to attract the red blood cells, for example. So it also got enough oxygen support, and then the sodium, potassium and ion exchange also works. Everything works in this cell. But if I come down from the electrical cell membrane tension to 50 millivolts or less, then I have an inflamed cell, or a very old cell, or a mutated cell. And with tumours and cancer cells, we know today that they no longer have an electrical cell membrane tension of more than minus 15 millivolts. I'll quickly show this to the viewers so that they can see it graphically. This cell electrics. And by the way, a cell that has less than minus 50 millivolts of electrical cell membrane tension is also called refractory. That means it doesn't even recognize the control signals of the whole body system anymore. So it can no longer do its job. Therefore, it's extremely important to increase this cell membrane tension, bring it back to the optimal minus 70 or minus 90 millivolts. It doesn't mean anything else than when the battery is charged, the body produces more ATP again, so energy. And the self-healing power is back. True? Yeah. And there's another important point. We work with an antenna. Now, you ask yourself how you hold this antenna. We'll show that later, but somewhere on a part of the body. How does this signal find the weak cell? As I heard before, energy uses the path of least resistance. It's like water. It's the same with water. Therefore, there's a second cell electrics aspect. That's the electrical resistance of the cell. A healthy cell has an electrical resistance of 2,500 ohms. But if I take a tumour or a cancer cell, it has just 300 ohms left. And where's the signal going? To the cell that needs it. There's also the so-called ECT therapy for cancer treatment. Electrocancer therapy, where one works with currents. And the current looks for the path of least resistance and goes into the malignant tumour for so long until the tumour's boiled out and then this cancer cell's gone. So it's a well-known practice. And what is also very interesting, there's another electrical aspect. You probably know EMS, electrical muscle stimulation, or EMA, electrical muscle activation. These are training methods, where you basically get an expanded muscle contraction by applying electricity. Is that about frequency therapy? I just put electric currents into the body with a special frequency. The goal of this exercise is muscle contraction. But what's happening there? The backlash, I put an impulse into the muscle and it pulls back. Exactly. And there's a little problem in there. They haven't really recognized it yet, or don't really discuss it. In fact, if I want electrical voltage and that has to flow, the ions have to move according to the opposite charges at the poles. So a negatively charged ion at positive poles and vice versa. What does that mean? The ions are in the cells. They have to leave the cells. They go through the cell membrane and go to the poles. This means that the cell content changes, and nobody has yet been able to conclusively explain to me that this isn't a disadvantage in the long term. Why am I saying this? These ingenious people who developed the system 100 years ago have already considered that. They did it with such a high frequency that the vibration of the frequency changes over 1,000,000 times per second. So the ions can't leave the cell. In other words, the cell content can't change. That means I don't have any negative side effects. There's no overdose. Not possible at all. Not possible at all. Okay. You trigger the body. The body then detoxifies. So intermediate tissue from the cells, the slag is removed, and fresh, clean water comes back into the cell. I'd like to take this opportunity to show the audience this experiment that we've prepared. Can you give us a brief demonstration of the device? And here is such a neon tube, dear viewers. You see it, as we all know it, and the exciting thing is now. May I hold it? Exactly. If I get to it with the handheld probe, something is created here, so that the whole thing is activated here. That means this is glass. The energy is transferred to these neon tubes, and it starts to illuminate. The cell starts communicating, exchange information with each other again. But it's crazy, isn't it? Usually we only have this when we put this into the circuit. So the electrons from the socket go through the tube and illuminate it with the vibration. And here you do exactly the same thing. Do I have to touch here? Or if I touch here now, it goes over to you. Energy is withdrawn into my body and in the cells that need it. Now, just over your finger, and if I had an ailment on, for example, on my shoulder or on my head, then I would go straight to the head. Have you already done the experiments when people have a headache and just put it there? It depends on where the headache comes from, whether it's in the front or neck area. So the motor centre. And it's important to drink water here. First you have to get water into your body, structured water, and then you can use the device. And whether it's a migraine or a local headache, and it really is usually half an hour, 45 minutes when they start feeling the changes and say a slight negative pressure is decreasing. So especially when it comes to menstrual pain, many women complain that it's recurring, and if they know that the period's coming, they basically start a day before, half an hour on the motor point, and they don't even have the headache anymore. Is the universal solution, but I would like to discuss this with you further, when every disease, every inflammation and every pain originates in the cell which has too little energy, lack of electrons, and we add electrons to this cell that's causing us pain or that's not in optimal strength, then we compensate for that. Nothing is impossible with this device, right? That's right. So, with cell tissue, cells that have a lot of water, the results, the testimonials are incredible. So that exceeds all hopes, all expectations that we had, similar to what Lakowski also said. Professor Lakowski called the device a multi-wave oscillator. Who is this Lakowski? He was a Russian scientist, a medic. He then practiced in Paris. He made a lot of experiments with high-frequency energy. But everything based on the inventions of Tesla. And there were a lot of devices all over Europe. And he did a monitoring, so to speak. He got references and feedback from everywhere. And in the introduction to his book in 1934, it says, the results exceeded all expectations. Why hasn't that caught on since 1934? It caught on in German-speaking countries alone. There is evidence that confirms this. Publications from the University of Vienna, for example, which at the time worked with electrical engineering and medical technology. And in 1930, 35, 38, there were up to 500,000 high-frequency devices in hospitals, doctors' offices, and private households. So there are whole guides written by doctors how to apply high frequency to oneself, for how long, at which point, to cure this or that. So that means when you didn't just swallow a pill, because ultimately this poison also accumulates and also damages the organs in the detoxification process. You go the direct way, support the problems where they are. The energy flows there, and if there's enough energy in the body can regulate everything itself. Only when it gets too little sunlight, bad food, bad water, is always stuck in a stressful life situation where it just can't calm down. Then it becomes difficult. And here it's supported. What happened to the many devices? I've never heard of it. I felt the same way. For example, I researched Ewald Paul. Ewald Paul has written 6 books. One of the books for ions with high frequency has been sold 100,000 times. And in 1938, all of his books were banned. Only in Germany. German-speaking areas, but Switzerland probably not. And we have now rediscovered 3 of his old books, and they can be downloaded from your website. And of course, it should also spread the word so that people simply rediscover that these things existed, and there was actually nobody bigger in electrical engineering than Nikola Tesla. He is the father. Radio frequency, radio technology, the power supply system, everything we use is based on his discoveries. Now, maybe we have to say right here, before Nikola Tesla, theoretically there was, from a scientific point of view, only one electromagnetic wave, namely the Hertzian wave, which spreads like a radio wave, basically circular, spherical. And on this carrier wave, I can, like my radio, just modulate information frequencies onto it. And then Tesla came and said, there's something else. And that's called the longitudinal law, in other words, also called the scalar wave. Many also say Tesla wave. On this carrier wave, not only can I get information frequencies, but also bring energy on it. I can transport energy. And that's exactly what happens here. Such a device wouldn't even exist without Tesla. Do we have the Hertzian wave here, or both? Here we have both. We also have the information frequencies. An information frequency portfolio is on it, where the cell's favourite music comes from all sorts of cells. They swing there in resonance with these individual information frequencies. You just opened a door with these frequencies. In frequency therapy, we know that the lungs have a frequency, the liver has one, and so on and so forth. And there you can act very specifically with frequencies on the corresponding organs. What kind of frequencies do we have here? So, there are 200 known oscillating circuits in the body that we know. And the Russians have chosen a route via the water here. That means they go to the original language, they go onto the matrix. And there are the mitochondria. So when an egg cell is fertilized, these mitochondria will then be found in all cells in the body. And they're given a clock generator. And they get their impetus to work, to regulate fluid balance and produce energy. And that's the basic topic. It doesn't matter which cell network in the organ, liver or pancreas. But we go back one step, like with a computer, to the BIOS system, the basic system where everything is built. And everything else is just an interface, is packed on top of it. But we go to the basis, the basic structure, the basic substance, how the cells communicate with each other, how they generate energy and communicate. So that means I have about 200 frequencies there. No, we have a carrier frequency of 144.015 megahertz here. This is the radio wave. It's like a plate, and on this plate we have different kinds of vegetables and fruits on it, what the cells can then use again. And these are different harmonic waves, and there are 50 known harmonic waves. But the Russians have done even more research and have more measuring devices. And with these special measuring devices, you're able, with this Tesla probe, to get these harmonic waves into the body, which the cells understand. So to bring it into resonance. Exactly. And that was exactly the word. You've prepared an experiment here, and I'd like to briefly show you that now. Dear viewers, stay tuned. So, what do we see there? So, this lineup of this ball started to vibrate. Was that exactly the vegetable that resonated with the lungs, for example? Exactly. So, basically, you first have to get the vibration from this hand probe in resonance with the body cell. They communicate on a similar basis, and the frequency is different. You can send out as much as you want, nothing will arrive. And if it's precisely coordinated, and most of the devices that you can buy right now, Rehatron or Terracell, these are devices that are very expensive, but all have a metallic resonance. That means if you have an implant, teeth or something in the body, and you bring in this high frequency, then the metal heats up to 200 degrees. It just falls out of the flesh. They're conductors, which means that all of the exposure goes here to the teeth. And here the Russians created a water resonance, so it only resonates on apples, on tomatoes, on water. What are we mostly made of? 70 to 90% water, depending on the area. I think there's an even nicer figure. Of 100 molecules in the body, only every 100th isn't a water molecule. The others are bigger, the proteins, but I like it even better. So out of 100 molecules, 99 are water molecules. That's the decisive factor for health and vitality. Okay, so all these Hertzian and scalar waves are modulated over the water, and the frequency that's modulated on it stimulates the right organ and brings it back into resonance. And then I have this energy transfer. Exactly. So in the organ where the cells have a problem, so the resistance is reduced, the energy will flow there. And for a healthy cell, the energy just flows around it. It arrives exactly where it has to. I think we have already understood that, but what about eye problems, for example? I also know that my eyes get inflamed from free radicals. You'd have to swallow a lot of antioxidants, but now I see this Tesla stick, so this oscillation stick, also as an antioxidant, right? Yeah, so we are still cautious about the eye, because the eye is, of course, an internal organ, has a lot of water. What we can say is, about our teeth, for example, many people use it if they have any root or dental problem. They hold the handheld probe on for a quarter of an hour and they say the pain's gone. Then actually this, may I say, antioxidants, because ultimately they are electrons, which is nothing else than what reveals the inflammation. It then goes exactly to where it hurts. And it's not just a band-aid, it really is the cure itself. And then it also turns slightly red, like with a massage. More blood is transported there. More blood carries more oxygen. Oxygen is actually very good for the body. And all of the regulators are activated. There is a very complex biochemical physical process. It's also clear that a lot of free electrons are formed under a certain plasma, because the water is also informed positively, so to speak. That was too fast for me now, please repeat slowly. So there is also a change in the water. The water becomes hexagonal. Let's leave it at that. But what is special about this hexagonal water? I have a lot of free electrons. And what does an antioxidant need? It needs free electrons. Basically, a free radical needs a free electron to neutralize it. This water has a lot of free electrons and has the advantage, when this free electron is released, it does not become a free radical itself, because it's a free electron, so it gives off an unnecessary electron without becoming a radical itself. This is genius. Well, these free electrons, but actually they are transferred to the water, formed by the water. And my body's own water changes the cell structure and can hold more electrons thanks to this hexagonal structure and bind to itself, right? In a way. Is there a picture that we can show about the hexagonal structures? In fact, that's how it works. This is the picture. Then I'll quickly show it to the audience, if I could. Here you can see the hexagonal structure, and it has more electrons in it. Layers are formed. They're like honeycombs. It's crystalline-like, this hexagonal water. It's like putting 1,000,000 honeycombs on top of each other. And then they split, because when oxygen atoms work together with the hydrogen atom, electrons are released, because not all of them are needed. And then below these layers and above these layers, there are free electrons. This is called free electron plasma. And then they bond with the free radicals. Exactly. They neutralize the free radicals without causing any disadvantages. It's fantastic. It's brilliant. Incredible. This is actually a real revolution. I'm amazed that it's not yet widely spread. What's going on there? The technology is so simple, isn't it? Very easy to use, understandable. The results were there 100 years ago. And the question is, who has an interest here that people don't find out so much about it? Well, so for self-healing and to see at home as a pharmacy, so for my family as a household pharmacy, it's brilliant. Then I can make an active contribution to the health of my children, my wife. And if there are problems, I can do something myself. And if it doesn't work, you can still go to the doctor, of course, right? But here you can do a lot with these electrons, especially preventatively. Before it hurts? Ideally, yes, because I need optimal water, and, as you always say, I need enough electrons. They make the difference. And what are you doing? Use it from head to toe every day, or what? In all honesty, I use it 15 minutes every day, no matter what. And how do you do that with this stick? Do you go from head down to toe? There's also an educational recommendation that is based on experience. It starts on the ears. Why the ears? They represent the whole body. So you know it from acupuncture. Do you feel something now? It's just like that. I just turned it off. It's good that he didn't say yes then. It will be like this. So of course I know it. There's a cell reaction that causes warmth. Maybe you can hold it to your ear to find out, because I know it. Yeah, of course. There's warmth. And then it's logical, again, that electrons are transferred there. Good, understandable. But it's also true that the antenna doesn't have any thermal changes when it's switched on. It's not a heating stick. That's just your ears. It resonates. That's the reaction of your cells. Right, that's cold. It's at room temperature. But if someone has bigger problems now, then the skin becomes so hot that it can burn. I already had someone with me in the studio who was so burned, said that they could take it, but they had a blister afterwards. What's important to understand is that this is just the response of the cell, just the response of the cell. And then it's kind of hypothermia, isn't it? That means I have a physical, punctual fever. Local hypothermia. Fever is the best healer. Everything with 41-point-something degrees has been used by the body for millions of years to get healthy again. Every animal does that in nature, in the forest, in the savannah. You know what? It's so exciting with you two, but it's terrible. My time has already run out. We have to come to an end. But we are still in the middle of it. Could you perhaps tell me briefly, if the viewers are interested now, are looking for more information, where can they get more information about this? Then they should go to quantisana.ch. Good, then it has a link and everything in it for reading. All information, yes. You sent me some PDFs too, a whole book about the whole story and background as well. So you can find everything there. You can find everything there, including the PDFs of books published 100 years ago. And it's unbelievable what they achieved with this technology back then. Pierre, thank you. Arthur, thank you very much. It's a great honour to have you both here. And you, dear viewers, I assure you one thing. We'll continue at this point in a week from today. Please switch on at the same time in the same place. And we'll talk about this topic again. And we'll give you more information about it. In my opinion, this is a revolutionary technology. Quite simple, where all of us at home could make a huge contribution and take our preventative measures in order to stay healthy. To not get any issues with diseases. This is what our TV station stands for, and I'm glad to be able to bring you closer to the natural medicine. With this in mind, thank you for watching, all the best, and see you next time.